That was a wild ride. Okay, let's get to the next story. We talked about New Mexico. We talked about impeachment. We talked about Trump taking off the Minnesota ballot. So let's get to this story. The FDA approves the new booster yesterday. Breaking story. It was about midday. We were in a meeting. They approved the new booster. Not really tested. No human trials or anything like that. But the good news is not all public health officials are on board with it. Let's bring up the story from actionforliberty.com. Florida's Surgeon General, this guy, I would really like to get to know more about this guy because he actually warns against taking the new booster shot. His name is Dr. Joseph Ladapo, recommended against the new COVID-19 booster shot in a press conference. Quote, there's essentially no evidence for it, Ladapo stated. There's been no clinical trial done in human beings showing it benefits people. There's no clinical trial showing it's a safe product for people. Here's a video. Let's play this video here so you can hear it from his own mouth. That first public health official I know of that doesn't recommend getting the COVID-19 experimental jab.
Surgeon General says Floridians should avoid getting the new one.
There's essentially no evidence for it. There's been no clinical trial done in human beings showing that it benefits people. There's been no clinical trial showing that it is a safe product for people.
Now, I've been watching the news all day today, but you can imagine the Biden administration is giddy and pushing the booster on everybody. They've basically been rolling this out for about a month. So here you go. Isn't that crazy? We actually have a public health official speaking the truth for the first time. Mm-hmm. Don't get that booster. Mm-hmm. You know, I used to tell this joke, Drew, back in like early part of the pandemic, and it was I was walking down the street and I saw a bunch of lab mice, and I asked them, "Are you guys going to get the vaccine?" And they said, "Well, we're waiting for the human trial to be over."
Mm-hmm. No, you know, it sounds like it's a nice thing that Ron DeSantis is finally doing something good for once. You know, putting this guy in because. You know, DeSantis, you know, if we want to say that people are being used like mice and hamsters for these medical experiments, well, that's exactly what DeSantis did with a World War II veteran. All you got to do is look up the video for yourself. But do you remember that one doctor, the one in Dallas or whatever it was, the big black lady that said, you know, that alien DNA was being used and whatnot? You know, you know what I'm talking about? Trump promoted her.
Remember that.
Stella Emanuel or something.
Is she the one with the? She's in the group with all the white coats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
didn't they try to attack her for?
They were coming after
some
her
of her
time.
other beliefs too.
Oh
making
yeah.
Her seem like she was crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, she was a rock star. She's my kind of doctor. I loved her
because she was very outspoken about ivermectin. And
yeah, right. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
See, that's the problem on our side is we had like this cult following on ivermectin too. It's like, okay.
She was with Simone Gold and some of those other doctors.
I think so. Yeah.
See, that was the thing about ivermectin. It's like, okay, they're suppressing it. What they did to Joe Rogan, that was crazy. But it's not like ivermectin's the cure-all, right? Like, I think it had some efficacy early on. It didn't seem to have efficacy in fighting COVID later on. There's a lot of junk studies against or junk science against it, but there also wasn't a lot proving ivermectin was the cure-all, like a lot of people did. So there was this love affair with ivermectin. Yeah. It almost drove our people into loving ivermectin so much. Yeah. It's like, well, it's just another drug.
You know, there weren't really anything that showed that there were negative consequences of taking it. It was either, you know, good or neutral. And, you know, for whatever reason, it wasn't until, you know, pretty recently that it was finally admitted by the government that, you know, ivermectin has been useful to some people. Not all the time, but for some people sometimes.
Well, that's actually a good point, Jesse, because I think it's actually less dangerous than Tylenol, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's like maybe it's not the cure-all, but at least it's not killing people. It's certainly safer than Tylenol, which I think that was still a recommendation. Maybe it still is to this day a recommendation dealing with COVID.